Truly unbalanced strategies aren't items or skills that everyone can see when they play against you. When the meta is full of dually, the devs can see the play rate of dually and adjust accordingly. Things that aren't obvious and are more secretive last multiple patches because they don't get screenshotted for Reddit. Knee Brace was one of the best items in the entire game because it had a unique interaction with both max health and cooldowns. It lasted for months before getting removed because it wasn't on your board for the player to see. Whereas overpowered items and skills people always complain about and know that they're playing against it. The biggest deal is temporary buff manipulation. The most obvious example is Belt. Even if you don't want to have Belt on your build, you should keep it in your stash, and when you go to Finn's Big Bite, you're able to get an extra bonus from the 5% it normally gives. You can see here that the Belt gives 54 max health without the Belt on the board, but it gives 81 when you have the Belt on the board. With a Silver Belt, you'll gain 7.5% of your XP versus the 5% without it. Maximizing the value of your resources is how you get the edge over your opponents. This same concept works with cooldown reduction. Feather and Insect Wing reduce an item's cooldown by percentage, but if you currently have cooldown reduction that's only temporary, you can remove it and get the normal buff that it would give, versus the lesser when you also have the temporary buff on it. And then you will put the temporary buff back. So here we have two weapons with the exact same 10-second cooldown. I have a Silencer that reduces the weapon's cooldown by 20%, and a Feather that reduces their cooldowns by 4%. Once the Silencer is on the board with only one weapon, the cooldown is 8 seconds, and then the Feather is sold, supposedly reducing it another 4%. But the Trebuchet ends up with 9.7 seconds on the cooldown, and the Shovel with 9.6. You can see on the tooltip that the percentage of the Trebuchet was only reduced by 3.2%, because it was already reduced by 20% for the 4% reduction. So if you are running a one-weapon build and you have Silencer, and you get an Insect Wing, you should remove the Silencer and put it to your stash before selling the Insect Wing to make sure you get the full buff. There are a lot of other items you can do this with, and I know it only seems like 0.1 seconds, and it's not going to matter, but this 0.1 seconds can be the difference between a 9-win run and a 10-win. There isn't a huge need to sell items before you need the room. Yes, there is some interactions with the way that item upgrades currently work, and the amount of items per shop is kind of low, so you can manipulate what the vendors give, but that could change in the future, and there are a lot of benefits for keeping items in your stash. There are definitely times when you want to be selling a bronze version of an item in hopes of getting a gold or diamond version from a shop later, but items you might want to use later and buffs for types you don't have can be kept. Right now, I only sell all my extra items for B1 and B2, just so it guarantees 2 item upgrades that I actually care about, but this could all change. The Eating Contest 5 chocolate bars is the obvious time where you want at least 5 spaces in your stash, but that's pretty much the only other time, and you can keep 3 throughout the rest of the game. But you need to be aware of the other times you might need extra room. The Gumball Machine encounter, you need a space when you buy. Item Gumball Machine, you need a space every hour, as well as with Tropical Island. At the start of every day, you need space for Shovel, Fishing Rod, Port, Vending Machine, Cash Register. You need room when you sell Pinata, and Safe. Room when you upgrade for the spare change from Money Tree. Room after each fight with Piggles. Extra room when you buy Cargo Shorts, Disguise, DJ Robot, Hatchet, and Chum. The payoff for dealing with all this stash nonsense isn't just, oh, maybe I'll use this item later. The latest patch brought the abilities to the Grand Society of Master Merchants. Barcoon is the main one to focus on, because he will make selling small items totally worth it. Keeping extra gumballs and chocolate bars and random buffs is totally a strategy, and selling them for Barcoon so they are worth 2 gold. You want to have as many small items as possible so that you can save up to do a Barcoon run all at once. Quixel and Midsworth are less useful, but if you're able to sell a medium item, then it could be a good tiebreaker between that and another encounter. Especially those first few days, you are so pressed for gold that any amount extra can be the difference between having a full board or not. Once you start getting legendary items from the PvE that sell for 50 gold, then you don't really need to worry about your economy as much. But managing economy is more than just not wasting gold and going to merchants with no gold. There are countless ways to get 1 or 2 more gold, and that might be the difference between being able to afford that enchanted item or not. Making money the most efficient way is just as important as spending it properly. Placing memory card day 1 can net you a bonus 3 or 4 gold and allow you to re-roll on day 1. Concealed Dagger, Walter Cooler, Tea-Set, Dragon Tooth, Crystal Bonsai, and the Lick items are perfect for going up against the early PvE monsters that you know you're for sure gonna beat. But your stash is the main way to generate extra econ. Items like Cove and Ambergris are the perfect way to store your money for later. As long as you are able to make the initial investment, selling Cove in the mid-game can be perfect for getting an enchanted item you never would have been able to afford, and then having enough money to float for the rest of the game. Pig is the econ hero, and he has a ton of ways to increase his econ. Fixer-Upper, Masterpiece, and Business Card are really common ways to just generate more gold than normal, but the most important interaction to know is with Rewards Card. Vineyard, Pawn Shop, and Landscraper are perfect examples of when it's worth it to move Rewards Card back and forth after each fight. It works for all merchants, but not the encounters, not like Pearl's dig site. So right before the fight, you gotta switch out the Rewards Card, and once the fight's over, switch it back in. If I don't have an item that gains extra value, then I'll just try and put Rewards Card next to an item that I'm going to sell soon. Or I could put it next to a weapon and hope I get Boar Market later. Briefcase is free on Bronze and Silver tier, but on Gold and Diamond, the spare change isn't enough to cover the cost. Dooley has basically no econ, so you gotta be very mindful of your purchases, and be aware of whatever bug Crypto currently has in whatever patch you're playing. When going to Curio, Taurus Chariot is the best way to be able to afford the reroll. You want to buy and sell Taurus Chariot once you have all of your small items. As long as you're able to immediately sell 4, it was worth it to buy and sell it. Personally, I think Coconut and Chocolate Bar aren't worth it when it costs 2 gold and it sells for 0, but the Blunanas, when they sell for 1 gold, could be worth it. Items like Bushel let you upgrade on a strange mushroom, but I'm sure that'll change soon. There are a lot of other unique encounter options, like on docks with Spyglass, Astrolab, and Star Chart, you're able to get 5 extra gold and an experience. I think Monster Ranch still gives you the same option, but Solar Farm is bad, so I haven't been able to check. Business Card gives you an extra experience at BazaarCon. Flagship or Submarine can give you 6 experience and escape the bounty hunters. And the Ice Cream Truck can be sold at the Street Festival, but then it only gives you 2 street vendors to choose from. There are probably a lot of other special interactions, but those are the ones I know. There are some items with unique interactions and really cool flavoring. Radiant Keg and Dam should be able to trigger multiple times. Shark Ray and Elusa Ray are Vanessa items, but they also count for Dooley's rays. There are 6 cores that Dooley can choose from at the start, but there's also a 7th core, the Combat Core, and it totally counts as another core. So all of your items, skills, and buffs that affect one core affect both of them. Combat Core is large, so it can be hard to fit it all. Luxury Tents, Life Preserver, and the Radiant Corsair monster skill bring you back to life, so if you're going up against an opponent, check to make sure that they don't have one of these before you celebrate. There are items with special enchants like Lemonade Stand, Crook, Crow's Nest, Weights, but the big thing with enchants is when an item already has that effect, enchanting it with that effect doubles the effect. And it doesn't double it immediately and then stick to that. It doubles whatever it would have been. So the buffs that you apply to it later get applied twice. For example, if you have an enchanted Restorative First Aiden and you sell a medkit, it'll give twice the buff that the medkit says it will. The same works for slow, heal, burn, poison, shield, haste, and freeze. Sometimes your board just sucks one battle and you can't seem to figure out why. Well, it's probably because your opponent has a cooldown increase. Items like Fort, Atomic Claw, Chrono Barrier, and the monster skill Bonk all increase your item's cooldowns. Corrosive Toxins lowers your weapon's damage, and Sunderer lowers your shield item's shield. It's not just Vanessa weapons that are ammo items. Max Potions are also ammo items. Dooley and Pig have a few ammo items, and Licklick's buffs are special ammo items. They lose 1 ammo permanently because they give permanent buffs, but if you upgrade one of them, the ammo resets. Sometimes upgrading a buff can be useful if the item that you're buffing is already diamond. The curio items that sell to give your leftmost item +1 haste or +1 slow can be upgraded and it'll give +2 haste or +2 slow. Diamond Scrap on Dooley reduces the core's cooldown by a full second, which can be way better than upgrading the core. Crashing Waves, Hammer, and Beach Ball count themselves. So if you have a Beach Ball and another aquatic item, they both get perma-hasted. When your items are frozen, the charge keyword still happens, and the bar moves up on the frozen item. But they can't activate until they're unfrozen, so it'll sit at the top until the freeze is over. The freeze tooltip refers to charge the same way that the haste tooltip does, and since it's lowercase, it's not a keyword. By knowing the interactions for every item is how you get 10 wins. I know these will obviously change a lot in the future, and I named a lot of stuff, so there's probably some stuff wrong, but let me know any other exploits you have found.